everyone, my name is Jolene Schaefer, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, E-commerce for Sage 100, Get Your Products to Market Now, presented by Jack Evans and Pat Shears of CIMCloud. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the question section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation. It will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment at the end of the presentation to answer our 2-question survey. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. We've invited CIMCloud here today because they are the industry experts on e-commerce. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. So we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jack.
Thanks, Jolene, and appreciate the intro and appreciate everybody joining us today. So as you probably know, again, the topic today we're going to be covering is going to be e-commerce for Sage 100 users, really focusing on how you can get your products to market quickly, effectively, and move some of your interactions with customers that have typically been done via phone, fax, and email into an online environment. So we're going to go ahead and get kind of started. And just as a general housekeeping item, we will be running a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So any questions that you have, just go ahead and drop those in the chat or in the question box, and we'll be sure to address them at the end. And again, really look forward to hearing some of the feedback you guys have and drilling down on individual questions. So to put a face with the voices you're going to be hearing today, we have myself, I'm Jack Evans. I'm our marketing and channel manager over at CIMCloud. We also have Pat Shears, who is our director of sales. Both of us spend a lot of time with customers, both on the existing customer and the prospective customer side, and have really got a lot of insights recently as people move things online in response to the COVID-19 virus and the changes that that's causing for businesses, both on the retail and on the business-to-business side. Also, just a general housekeeping, hope everyone's doing well. I know many of you are like Pat and myself and have had to adjust to a remote environment and are dealing with customers and vendors and clients that are all doing remote work as well. So again, hope everybody's doing well out there, staying safe, and again, being productive as much as you can be during these kind of crazy times we're dealing with. So here's kind of an agenda for what we're going to cover. We're going to walk progressively through this, but really want to look at some of the landscape changes that we've seen from a COVID-19 standpoint, some of the industry and kind of high level metrics and insights there. We're going to dive into kind of how all of these B2C online behaviors are kind of adapting in a B2B world, what that means for sellers, both on the wholesale and distribution side, as well as the retail side, and then walk through kind of what we see as some strategies and things to look out for as you successfully deploy e-commerce solutions, and ultimately wrap up with how at CIMCloud, we work with businesses like yourselves to really deploy these solutions and get value both in the B2B and the B2C side of your business. So I'm going to go ahead and drill down on a changing landscape and really how COVID-19 is impacting the business world today. So this is nothing new. I think anybody that's been watching the news, reading the newspaper, just having general business conversations is definitely seeing this and feeling this. But obviously there's been a lot of supply chain impact as it relates to COVID-19. We're seeing stats on here, 42% of retailers expect product delays and 40% of retailers expect inventory shortages. Again, really what's disrupting that is people being in a remote workspace, people not being able to have full staffs on the manufacturing or on the distribution side of their business. So as the supply chain gets disrupted and workers are going remote, we're seeing 62% of US workers are working remote as a result of COVID-19. And I think a lot of people are slowly getting back into being in an office setting and going back to the way things were before. We'll see that over the next couple months as people get settled back in. But I think a lot of people and a lot of businesses that we've worked with, and that I'm sure you guys have worked with as well, are realizing that there is an ability to keep operations going from a remote setting. And I think we'll see remote employees and remote experiences in a business world only increasing as a result of COVID-19 and the necessity that was placed on everyone to move into a remote environment. And as a result of this, on the buying side, buyers are moving online. So 52% increase year over year in total online sales volume. That's from a transaction standpoint, with 8.8% increase in the number of online shoppers present year over year. So kind of interpreting those bottom statistics there. There's obviously more transactions because people are doing things online that they traditionally weren't, but also more people that were hesitant to complete transactions, and even in their day-to-day lives just do the Amazon type shopping. A lot of people have, out of necessity, had to move into that environment, and again, we don't see that changing moving forward. So kind of drilling down on specific industries that have been hit. This slide is very obvious for anyone that's been following the news, but there are industries that are seeing a big increase or spike in demand. Again, going back to that supply chain of getting medical supplies throughout the supply chain and ultimately into the hands of the consumers. So I'm not going to read all these steps on the screen here, but masks, disinfectants, gloves, vitamins, things that people are doing and may or may not have been purchasing beforehand to help combat the health risk of the virus as we kind of slowly get back out into going to restaurants, going to stores, being able to go into your office setting. Again, the retail environment where we're seeing increases and spikes really is moving all sales online, or a large percentage of sales online. And then the medical supply and health industry is obviously seeing a huge spike in demand. And again, I think only the increase may stop, but I think we're going to see a flat line at a larger percentage of sales coming in that medical industry this year versus last year, and moving forward as people again settle back into that work environment and begin going out in public. There's obviously some regional or geographical implications on this as well. I think what we've seen in the news is people state by state are kind of each treating this differently and rolling out, implementing people back into their day-to-day lives. But again, I think across the board, we're going to continue to see health and people in that vertical continue to see a spike in demand for their products. And obviously there's implications on that related to the supply chain as well. For us at CIMCloud, where we really have a lot of domain expertise and a large percentage of our customer base are in that manufacturing and distribution vertical, and they're feeling the impact of COVID-19 as much as anybody. So what you're seeing here is 78% of manufacturers expect a financial impact of their business. That may not be due to a decrease in sales. It may be due to an increase in cost as they've moved their employees into remote settings. Again, it could be due to a decrease in sales volume and trying to maintain their staff. So you're taking some off the top line and not taking anything off the bottom line. But again, there's going to be financial impacts for many businesses. 53% of manufacturers are experiencing some change in their operations. I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but again, a lot of manufacturing settings, you're having to deal with decreased staff, to deal with social distancing implications. Maybe not all of your employees feel comfortable returning to work or don't have the means to get to work due to public transit being down. So again, not only are they going to feel a financial impact, there's also going to be an operational impact that comes out of the COVID-19 virus and the changes that we've been dealing with currently and will deal with moving forward as we continue to battle this virus. Again, I alluded to supply chain disruptions in the last slide, and you're seeing there down there on the bottom. But a survey and what's really interesting as we focus on this webinar focus is a survey of 600 B2B leaders. Those are in large corporate settings. Are identifying moving online and moving into a direct-to-consumer selling as the most promising growth opportunity for the remainder of this year. So really, businesses in this manufacturing and distribution segment are trying to overcome supply chain disruptions by empowering or allowing themselves to be able to sell in a direct-to-consumer setting. Obviously, that's not going to be the case for everyone. A lot of contractual obligations and existing relationships may decrease the ability to sell direct to consumer. But again, as B2B leaders and manufacturing and distribution companies are evaluating how to get products to that end user and keep that supply chain flowing, direct to consumer selling is a huge area of opportunity for businesses. What I think really helps bring this together is understanding the current state of these wholesale and distribution companies. Again, some of them were positioned where they were very well equipped to move into an online environment, and they're going to live in that kind of fourth column. But a lot of B2B sellers and wholesale and manufacturing companies don't believe that e-commerce, or in a previous life didn't believe that e-commerce was a fit for their vertical or something that their industry would be able to adopt. A lot of that may due to complexity or customizations or the need to spec out individual requirements. But again, there's this kind of first demographic, or if you will, or psychographic, where e-commerce has not been a part of their market historically. And again, they're not equipped to handle this move into an online environment. The second bucket of B2B sellers that we kind of see in a current state, so this is pre-COVID-19, are people that have a website, they have an online presence. If you Google search their company, you'll be able to find a website and get some general information, but they're not leveraging their website as a selling arm or extension of the company. And again, it's more of a corporate placeholder or a minimum viable product, if you will, as it relates to a website, and they're not leveraging the ability to sell online. These last two buckets are really what we like to help businesses get to, as being an e-commerce player and or an e-commerce leader. So these two buckets are more or less interchangeable, but these are people that have been equipped. They did have the infrastructure in place to handle a lot of their transactions moving online. Again, they were equipped when COVID-19 started to kind of shift that selling as they were coaching their customers. Here's what's going on with us. Here's how we're going to react to the COVID-19 situation. And here's how you can continue doing business with us with minimal disruptions. So again, looking at this slide, you kind of have your first two buckets where these are people that were not well positioned to handle a move to online selling. And the second two buckets, you have people that were very well positioned and already had an infrastructure in place to move online. But again, for both people, there's going to be some disruption or some need for change related to COVID-19. And again, being positioned to take advantage of that move to online is a big thing for B2B sellers that want to make sure they don't see a decrease in their revenue and sales volume. So that kind of wraps up our first section. I'm going to hand it off to Pat to talk about how some of these B2C behaviors are moving online in a selling environment is changing and really adapting to this B2B world. So without further ado, Pat, go ahead and take it away, bud.
Yeah, man. Hey, well done. That was pretty good. Big shoes to fill now. So yeah, appreciate you guys taking the time. I kind of want to step into more of what B2B buyers are expecting, some of their behavior changes that we've seen, or just feedback from the overall market, and kind of some of the external factors that we've discussed previously. So you'll notice here, 82% of B2B buyers, they're wanting the same experience that they have when they're making personal purchases or transactions, right? So you can thank Amazon, and I'm sure, like many of you, I probably have too many Amazon packages coming to my house, or more than I would probably admit. But it's just the convenience. It gives me the opportunity to shop on my terms, not have to depend on someone else's response or phone call or email reply to make that transaction happen. So that convenience obviously is starting to kind of roll over into the B2B environment. So now B2B buyers want to be able to go online. They want to be able to browse information on products. They want to see pricing. They want to see order status and history and information. And so with that, what we typically try to accomplish, or at least provide for our customers, is just that for their customers to use. So tapping into the back office system and using application style systems with the integration behind the scenes to drive some of the data there, so that everything's in sync with how you operate as a business day to day. So that's one of the key components that we try to focus heavily on to help streamline that. And then obviously you got COVID's kind of pushed to online, the social distancing orders. Again, it varies state by state, and hopefully we're kind of coming into getting back to some normal behaviors, but it's definitely going to change over time. And I think it's helping or not helping, but allowing organizations to understand the importance of having some type of interaction tool set that mimics that personal buying experience. We've seen a lot of uptick in that just personally here, just to give you some information there. And I think it's something that you could definitely tap into to help mitigate some risk or allow, there you go, working from home, right? The dog's barking. Allowing customers to self-serve and really increasing that customer experience. So Jack, you can hit that next slide there for me. How loud was that bark though?
It was good. That's not working from home.
No, man, it's funny. So essentially, you know, as you look into it, B2B buyer behavior, it's driving market growth. You got 56% of businesses expect to make at least half of their purchases online. So that's a significant number. They want to make the transaction happen online. It allows them to do so 24/7, right? They're not at the mercy or under the constraint of normal business hours, having to wait for a response and things like that. And then you got 65% of B2B buyers, they want it simplified, not just from the ordering standpoint, but from the delivery standpoint. So Amazon does a really good job of this, giving you order status information, and snapping the picture even of where they left the package. It's just a nice feature to have to give you peace of mind as a customer or a buyer. It really increases that customer experience, which ultimately can help protect and grow customer base and grow some of your market share against some competitors, right? So we see that quite a bit. 93% of B2B buyers, they actually prefer to buy online once they've decided what to buy. So I mean, that's a substantial number, and we're seeing that be highlighted even further with just the current external climate that we're facing. And then you got some other numbers down here. So the 57% of B2B buyers, they want online access to their accounts and orders, which kind of goes into the order status, fulfillment updates, kind of systematically driven to their applications or devices that we all carry nowadays. And then you got 93% of B2B buyers, they search online before buying a product. So it's pretty similar to the home market, right? Most of us, you probably start, if you're purchasing a home or looking at property, you typically start online. It's very common. That behavior is definitely consistent in the B2B environment that we're seeing with our customers, and it's pretty cool. So hit that next slide for me, Jack. Yep, and then you got the numbers here. So a large growing market, kind of segueing from that previous slide. There's some pretty cool stats here. I don't need to read them off to you, but there's some huge projections in just overall dollars being spent through B2B e-commerce style transactions and environments. And so it's key that for our customers, what we want to do is allow the tool set and help provide additional features and new R&D initiatives here we have to help our customers retain and increase their market share, right? So we want them to get into those last two buckets that Jack alluded to previously, being, you know, the e-commerce players, and ultimately trying to get you to the point where you're the e-commerce leader in your specific industry or vertical, and using tools in combination with the traditional phone, fax, email, using web applications to increase customer experiences and just better suiting or better suited for the behavior changes that we're seeing on the buying side. So definitely some big numbers there, and there's plenty of market potential to tap into from the B2B e-commerce side, and definitely something that is a very common conversation that we're having nowadays with customers and potential customers. So you get that next slide.
And one thing to piggyback on there too, Pat, and wanted to point out, so these estimates were pre-COVID-19, so these estimates came out at the end of last year. And what's really interesting to think about is, as we alluded to earlier, people in their day-to-day lives are moving online. They're expecting that same experience in a B2B world, and will continue to expect that. So it's almost unquantifiable or unimaginable how big these numbers are. And again, it blows your mind. But again, you think about the transaction volume, the transaction size on the B2B side. So there's a lot more dollars and cents going through that B2B e-commerce segment than, say, me or Pat ordering a couple of packages off Amazon. So again, being positioned to capture a growing market that's going to grow even more as a result of everything we've been dealing with the last couple of months is really what we're trying to help our customers do. And it's really our mission as a business, is to position these companies to be successful in that setting. So that's actually the end of that section. We're going to kind of pivot here and talk through, it's great to highlight these opportunities and to highlight what's expected. Actually walking through and implementing and going down that roadmap certainly isn't as easy as just snapping a couple buttons and clicking your fingers. So for us, what we really like to do is outside of our individual company or our individual products, share insights on what we see successful e-commerce, both on the B2B and the B2C side looking like. And there's kind of 4 buckets, and we're being consistent with that 4-bucket approach. But again, the first thing that we really preach with our customers and really like to consult with them on is pursuing the entire e-commerce project with organizational alignment. So again, that bucket of people that have a website, they view it as a marketing asset. It's simply just, hey, if you Google us, you can find us and see we're real. You don't want that mindset within your company. You want the organization, whether it's your sales staff, whether it's your admin staff, whether it's your ownership. Again, you want them to view this investment in e-commerce as an extension of their company selling model, servicing model, and ultimately fulfillment model. So again, one thing that we really like to use as part of our implementation roadmap and as part of our adoption roadmap is having the entire organization buy in that, hey, this is a valuable tool set that's going to make all of our jobs easier and ultimately increase customer satisfaction. The second bucket here is arguably the most important, and for us, we've really in recent years adjusted the way that we handle projects to fit a phased approach. So as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's not as simple as just saying, hey, I want a website, I want an e-commerce site, and let's go. There's a lot of time, energy, effort, resources, and strategy that goes into a successful e-commerce deployment. So one thing we do at CIMCloud is really focused on a phased deployment, rolling it out to a small sample of customers, particularly on the B2B side, and getting customer feedback to make sure that what you think you're building, the way that you think that the site's going to function, fits what the customers need. And for us, again, that really goes back to making sure we're protecting that investment and increasing the ROI. You can build the best solution possible, and if it's not getting usage, it's just a cost bucket. So for us, taking a phased approach, trying to limit the scope of a phase 1 or wave 1 project is a huge way to basically see success and get feedback on that success, but also drive your long-term strategy around what customers ultimately need and want. The third one really fits into what CIMCloud specializes in, which is leveraging your ERP system. So all of us on here are Sage 100 users or consultants or have some affiliation with Sage 100 and understand that ERP system is the heartbeat of your business. It houses all of your business critical data. And again, we want to continue using that ERP system the way it was designed to be used and leverage integration to make it easier to get data in and out of it. So in the B2B world, that's displaying negotiated pricing and order history and customer information that all lives inside that ERP. And on the B2C side, it's streamlining that order volume and reducing the need to have employees whose sole job is to manually enter orders. For us at CIMCloud, we're not in the business of trying to take away jobs, but if we can reallocate or cut down on the number of manually entered orders that need to get from your website into your ERP system, it frees up those employees to focus on higher level activities, higher, more value added activities. So again, not trying to take away jobs or replace employees, but really trying to free up people to focus on high impact activities. And then the fourth bucket is pretty obvious, but really focusing on adoption. So as I mentioned, if you build the best solution possible and people don't come, it's a wasted cost bucket. And again, all of the first 3 kind of icons in here drive that adoption, right? You want to make sure that your organization is projecting the website as a valuable tool to customers. You want to make sure that you're taking a phased approach to get an effective solution deployed. And you want to leverage that ERP system to make sure that what your customers need to do on the site is available to them, the data that they need is available to them, and you're not creating 2 separate data centers. So again, all 3 of those first buckets really drive successful adoption and successful e-commerce, whether in the B2C or B2B segment.
Yeah, Jack, real quick, the customer we were talking with, it was a few weeks back, I think. They were in the mason or stone industry, and originally they had 3 or 4 personnel that were responsible for day-to-day just hand keying those sales orders that were coming through from their sales team, phone calls. and was it Mike? He was telling us they basically promoted 2 of them to an outside sales position and 1 into an internal kind of operations, and they just have 1 individual that's kind of overseeing and validating some of the orders, which is pretty cool. Just wanted to touch on the jobs and the reallocation as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm sure all of us that are in the software identification, segment, we understand that the goal of e-commerce and of online software applications is trying to build that efficiency. And you hit it there. That was a company that we've done business with that, again, was able to leverage our solution to redeploy employees. And now more than ever, that's going to be important, is making sure that all of your headcount, all of your cost, all of your operational cost is doing value-added work. So again, as we come out of COVID-19, move into this new world, so to speak, again, making sure that whatever investments you have on the software side, whether it's e-commerce or other software applications, are building out efficiency tools that basically make your employees and your customers be able to do business easier. And that's what that's what all of these recommendations here really build up into. So that's a good piece to add there, Pat. So I appreciate that.
Hey man, just trying to help you out, doing what I can.
So here we're just going to hit on the 2 segments here, the B2B e-commerce and the B2C e-commerce segment. Again, not going to drill down on stats too much, but really these kind of fit the 3 themes on the B2B side that we think are key success drivers. So one, and Pat hit on this a little bit in the second section, is providing a personalized experience. And you're able to do that by leveraging the strategies and recommendations outlined in the previous slide, where you're pursuing with alignment so your customers feel as though the tool you're providing them is personalized. Leveraging that ERP integration is going to do a great job of making sure you're displaying information that fits those B2B buyers. So again, showing their order history, showing their payment history, being able to see your negotiated pricing, being able to see your history with an individual product. So all of those things that are available through ERP integration make it more personalized for customers and make it a very valuable tool for them. Kind of the second and third bucket here are around having instant engagement and a connected process. And again, all of that goes back into building a solution that fits with your customers' needs. So displaying real-time information can move a lot of those questions that are constantly coming in on what's my price on this? How much do you have in stock of this? Do you have anything in stock on this? Again, moving those activities into an online environment will free up that customer service staff and make it easier for customers to answer questions. And then also just ensure accuracy throughout the process. So the more hands you have to involve, the more manual work involved in servicing your customers, the more opportunities for a breakdown in communication, maybe an order to get input wrong, maybe just you're trying to get pricing information to a customer and you provide the wrong price. All of those things damage that customer relationship, damage that buying experience. And so again, in a B2B world where people are more focused on purchasing than shopping, it's key that experience fits what they need and will move those interactions online moving forward for your organization as well. So those are kind of the 3 buckets or areas that we think are very impactful for successful B2B e-commerce. The B2C e-commerce world is a little bit different. And for us, it's really, as we work with customers that do both B2B and B2C, it's important that you identify the right subject matter experts to address all 3 of these areas. So, we kind of have broken this down into SEO, content marketing, and integration as 3 themes for successful B2C e-commerce. You'll notice that only one of those areas, the integration piece of it, is what CIMCloud specializes in. And so we leverage, SEO expertise shops. So and that for us is the biggest thing, is not adding domain knowledge where you don't have it, and leveraging businesses that do things effectively. So what you're seeing here is 93% of experiences online begin with a search engine. And I think for myself and Pat, I know you can relate. Anytime I'm wanting to see what a product is, wanting to see whether it's a house or a new set of golf clubs, I'm going online, I'm typing into Google what I'm looking for and seeing what comes back. So you need to make sure that your SEO strategy gets you on that first page, gets you identified by your retail or your B2B customers, and gets them engaged with your website. Once you get them to your site via an SEO strategy, you want to make sure that the content there depicts who you are as an organization, the types of people that use your products or services, and ultimately provide an environment that allows them to purchase and get their transactions placed, make those payments, and get that fulfillment process started. So 71% of consumers are sharing a positive experience on social media. Again, going viral is very relevant in today's world. And even if virality isn't what you're looking for, you're just simply wanting to grow your market share. Providing an experience where people can find you, can digest information on who you are and what you do, will ultimately get them engaged with your company. The fifth stat here that we're seeing, 22% of global retail sales will be transacted online by 2023. Again, I see that number spiking as a result of COVID-19 and the move to online, and people have identified, hey, I don't necessarily need to go to the store, brick and mortar store, for these little small things. I can just put a couple clicks on the internet and have them shipped to my house. So again, building this fully immersive B2C experience, getting them in the door, educating them, giving them an environment to effectively buy, provides a scalable solution for your business and allows you to grow that B2C segment. And again, really grow your brand, grow your market share, and get some growth out of this crazy situation we've all been dealing with. So that's kind of the B2C, B2B e-commerce recommendations, a holistic view at what we at CIMCloud recommend, regardless of whether you're on the B2B or B2C side. And now Pat's going to drill in on exactly how at CIMCloud, what our product looks like, and how customers leverage our solution. So Pat, I'll let you take it back over, bud.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So the CIMCloud application, not to get too, in the weeds on the CIMCloud product and kind of showing the bells and whistles, definitely want to try to keep these more informative, and I much prefer those types of presentations anyhow. So I'm quickly going to hit, if you want to touch on the next slide, Jack, some pieces that kind of summarize some of the key components that are baked into the CIMCloud application, and how, or maybe to provoke some thought or just give you guys some areas to look at and see what could potentially work, or if it's an opportunity for you guys to deploy and have customers self-serving. So this is just a quick little snippet from one of our demo sites that we log into. It's a coffee distribution company, obviously fake, but wanted to give our demo some context. So we go through this pretty regularly on discovery and demo calls with customers and potential customers, and really identify some of the areas of how they operate, what the fulfillment process is currently. We want to be sure that when we're going through and making recommendations on potentially using the CIMCloud application, that we mitigate as much of the change control, change process internally as possible, right? So one of the key components, customers logging in, as you're seeing here, they're able to easily navigate between looking at billing and shipping information, addresses, contact information. They can search and browse products. We have some really neat kind of baked in features that are also part of the administration or back end of the site for our customers to actually use and manage the site on their own. Is able to use what we call data sets. So data sets is a concept that we deployed probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago now, but it's become very popular with customizing the experience and leveraging a container mechanism to apply different containers to customers. So not to get in the product weeds and technical jargon, but it's more centered around being able to customize goods for certain customers when they log into the application. So a good example is private labeled items. So if you have some customers that have a certain SKU or item that's only specific or relating to their account, they're the only individual that can order it or organization, we can use data sets to apply that. And it's very, very much built out in the product and productized so that it's something that we can spin up and you guys can leverage the tool set and manage the application. So just one key tidbit there. It allows customers to place orders online. So through the catalog, they're able to browse product information. You can have associated documents, pretty common e-commerce functionality. The coolest piece is just the customer specific pricing. So we replicated the Sage 100 pricing logic so that it's always up to date. We have triggers set up. So anytime you change pricing in Sage, you don't have to manage pricing anywhere else. The system automatically picks up that change and obviously communicates that to the site. And so when the customer logs in, or a sales rep or an employee, they can view the pricing in real time based on the core source of truth, essentially from Sage 100. Place orders, paying invoices has become very popular as well to try to streamline and cut costs on something that's a pretty simple and repeatable process. So a lot of our customers will take advantage of the online payment portal, and we pass cash receipts into Sage 100 as well. Again, just trying to not only provide customer experience, but streamline the internal efficiencies and help make that simpler, right? So we see a huge uptick for a lot of our customers in time to receiving payment on orders just because of the simplicity using the system. So we definitely want to try to help incorporate that as well and shrink the time to cash on that accounts receivable side, and keeping that backlog of the accounts receivable sponge from getting too cluttered up with people not paying the invoices. So just another example there. You can place returns. We have RMA systems that are really neat that incorporate submitting RMAs and then, you know, accessing the system anytime. So it's 24/7. Customers can place orders. They don't have to wait for business hours. We kind of alluded to that previously, but those are some of the key value adds or feature sets rather to give you a quick window in. Obviously the application is pretty large. We have a number of pages we can hit and some cool things we've done. So we could definitely get into more of that on a demo call, or feel free to reach out to SWK and ask them for some more information, and we can send you videos or hop on a call. So that's just a quick look at the B2B e-commerce side. Jack, if you hit this next slide here, we'll jump into the B2C, which you kind of touched on a little bit, Jack. It's yeah, B2C, those were the trailblazers, right? And it makes sense if you think about it. So the B2C transaction, that's a much more common or repeatable process as far as how that interaction happens, right? Everyone's paying the same price. They're paying with a credit card. There's no terms codes associated with it. So the complexity really lies on the B2B side, which I think has a lot to do with why it's kind of a laggard as far as getting into the e-commerce space as compared to the B2C space. But we have the ability, we have tool sets leveraging the application as well for you to publicly communicate your product offering, what you guys provide as an organization, and allowing anonymous users to place orders at retail pricing. We still use sync frameworks to generate sales orders and the like inside of Sage 100, and even creating counts on the fly. Some neat features there. All too often what we see, and Jack, you can probably certainly provide some insight too, is I know we're talking with customers that do it pretty regularly, but the paradigm's kind of shifting. So if most people think about e-commerce, they typically think of some of the major players in the e-commerce space. So you got the Shopify's, the Magentos, the WordPress WooCommerce style sites. And the issue with those that we typically see, just based on experience, they're great applications, and I've used them personally on some more retail style projects and needs. The issue lies when you try to go in and customize those to handle B2B specific material and information to even make it usable for a B2B customer, because pricing's different, terms codes, they can't do an order on PO. You got to create custom pages to show invoices because it's not a standard process in e-commerce from B2C standpoints. So we see that happen, and it's difficult to manage customizations. So we wanted to streamline. That's the niche that we really focus on, or niche rather, of being able to build an application at the infrastructure level to roll it off the assembly line and make it more cost, a benefit on the cost side for our customers by streamlining that and cutting costs to deploy the system. And then you don't have a snowflake to manage. So Jack, I think it was a call yesterday, we were talking through some folks that have created a customized application. As soon as they updated Sage to the newest version, it just all broke and they had to kind of go down that rabbit hole again. So some benefits there. Not saying it's a one size fits all. There's some really neat things and love the B2C applications. That's just the area we focus on, is the B2B side.
Yeah, Pat, and one thing to add to that too, going back to the slides that we hit on the strategies for success, again, you hit it there. It all goes back to what your needs are as a business and making sure you're protecting that investment. So as you alluded to, there's other e-commerce solutions that, you know, the Shopify's, Magentos of the world, and they work great. The issue that, you know, and what we evaluate with customers is really the volume and play, how you're handling these orders and getting it to your fulfillment team, and what the needs are there. So if your transaction volume in a B2C segment is low, the headcount and overhead required to get those orders processed is low, maybe ERP integration isn't a necessity and you can get by on non-integrated applications. But as Pat alluded to, and again, working with customers over the years, when there's a large volume of B2C retail transactions, and you have 2, 3, 4 employees whose entire job is to take those orders and get them into Sage, it just creates a bottleneck in your fulfillment process. And so again, when the need is there, when the volume is there, that ERP integration on the B2C segment is equally important. So
yeah, Jack,
you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, it's very common. We see that a lot. So there's a lot of organizations that have initially, in the inception of their organization, they started out in the B2B landscape, right? That was their business model. They were in the wholesale distribution sector, selling to resellers. And then, with the era of e-commerce and being able to target or pick up market share from the direct to consumer side, a lot of these organizations also spun up a separate sales channel of selling to the general public, right? And so in doing so, they've been able to capitalize on that, and the order volume gets so extreme that there's this huge disconnect between fulfilling the order, like you said, and the orders coming in through the site. So there's some neat things we've done with the API side to be able to, if you have an existing B2C Shopify site, or Magento as an example, we have the ability to sync orders in and also facilitate a separate but cohesive looking application for the B2B side. And that's where we see typically where we would draw the line in the sand on our recommendation is if you get into the B2B side and a customer needs to have separate or different experiences or UIs on the site, it can become challenging to try to customize a B2C application where we have the standard platform and tech stack to be able to handle those types of needs. So we can, a lot of times we even combine the two, or we can, the phrase that we like to use is the one throat to choke model. So a lot of times they'll have a B2C site, but as we move down to phase 2 or phase 3 projects with our clients, and they want to have one vendor to support them and not have to manage multiple vendors, a lot of times we'll take over the B2C site and switch it over to our application as well. So just food for thought and giving you some real world examples of what we see as a takeaway. So yeah, but good points, Jack. It's good stuff. Oh, and the classic quote at the end of the presentation. Jack, did you pick this one or did Carrie? I like this one.
Yeah, I think this one's fitting for the world we're in right now, where not to consider a global catastrophe or pandemic as an opportunity, but again, for a lot of businesses, it has created a situation where there is bandwidth to address infrastructure needs. You have employees that may or may not be able to continue what they had been doing previously, and so identifying long-term strategic projects to redeploy those employees on can really add value in this kind of crazy remote world we're in right now. So, the quote of opportunity is missed by most people because it looks like it's dressed in overalls and requires hard work. Again, for us, making sure that you're strategic and aligning yourself with resources that have domain knowledge and expertise decreases the perception of the amount of work and the difficulty of deploying these solutions. So,
hey Jack, can you read that again in your best Thomas Edison voice?
I don't know if I have a Thomas Edison voice, brother.
I wonder what it would be. Opportunity is missed by most people. All right, I'm done. Next slide.
Yep. So that's actually the end of our presentation here. We're going to open it up to Q&A, and Jolene, I think you were going to help us facilitate some of the questions that have come in throughout the presentation. But again, before we jump over to the Q&A section, again, just really encourage everybody to do what makes sense for your business. Stay safe. Again, as you kind of evaluate when and if you're going back to normal, just think strategically and think through what you have in place, what infrastructure is in place to support your short-term needs, your long-term needs, and then again, reaching out to the team at SWK, allowing them to use their expertise and domain knowledge to align you with vendors that provide solutions, whether that's e-commerce or in other areas of your business, allowing them to align you with people that have that strategic knowledge and experience to deploy successful solutions. So again, Jolene, I'll open the floor to you here, but we appreciate everyone's time and look forward to any questions that we may have.
Thank you, Jack. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the question section of your GoToWebinar, and we'll give that a minute in case any come through. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have subject matter experts here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. And while we give that a minute, we'll also be launching a poll that will pop up on your screen shortly.
Uh-oh. Jolene, you're putting the pressure on subject matter experts on the call. Okay. All right. Got this.
All right, it looks like we do have a few that have come through. Is there now an integration available between Sage 100 and WooCommerce or strictly B2B?
Yeah, so good question. To kind of touch on the API side of our application, we do have and have done in the past leveraging there's kind of two big components to our platform. Think of the first one as the software piece that is installed locally on the Sage server to create the highway between our cloud database that runs the web application. We can leverage that sync framework to have a RESTful API on the cloud database side to push and pull data from a site or a third-party application like WordPress or WooCommerce. Can't talk today. So if you're looking to pass information from Sage into your WordPress application or sync information from WordPress, like an order, into Sage, we very much have an ability to use our RESTful APIs, is what it's called. I know it's kind of a catch-all term. People like to throw around and say, oh, it's got an API, it's fine. But we use that and we built it in a way to sync data to and from your back office system that traditionally Sage 100 wasn't set up for. So hopefully, I think that was the question or the direction of that, and hopefully I answered it.
All right, we have another one that came through. Is the B2C site attached to the existing company website as a tab or a link?
It can be, yeah. So there's multiple options there. Some of our clients or customers, we will basically, their entire web presence, we'll take that over and we'll host, we build, host, and support the entire application. And so we could be a one-stop shop for all of the web properties or assets. Or some of our customers, just like you said, we can set up navigation links to where we can match the look and the feel of a different platform. So let's say you have a WordPress site that's just a corporate-facing site. It's giving information about you, location, what you do as a business, things like that. And then a lot of times what we'll do is we'll drop a link that says customer login on that existing site. And so it's black box to us, except for that link. Once they click that, we have a subdomain typically like orders.companydomain.com. And it looks cohesive because the color scheme and the logos and the design, it all matches and it's cohesive, but it's now entering them into that separate application. They don't know the difference, but it's now going into the CIMCloud application. So there's multiple ways to definitely handle that dynamic. That second example I gave you with that link is for net new customers that we acquire. That is probably, it's not a one size fits all, but I'd say it's around 85% of the path forward we take with those customers. Just for
yeah. And chiming in here too, again, I think going back to some of the strategies outlined on SEO and content marketing, again, if your existing website's there, it's been there, it's ranking, it's important to keep that site in place and to continue to get that traffic that you're generating organically on the B2C side. So yeah, to Pat's point, we want to make sure that whatever infrastructure is currently in place and the strategy we take with that aligns with making sure we're not creating a situation for restarting from an SEO or from a content standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Jack. So one quick note I'll put on that is one area that we really focus on in the kind of sales discovery and project scope and things like that is looking at if you're trying to replace an existing platform or not. So we've gotten, just based on experience, learning the hard way, 10, 15 years ago, we've identified that there are implications when you're replacing a live application, specifically one that's being used by your customer base and is driving revenue. So there's a lot of risk there, sensitivity to that change. But we, based on the experience that we've had doing those types of projects, there's different strategies and philosophies that we go down with our clients. We have 301 redirects and things that help mitigate those changes or risk management of those changes. And we also work with SEO consultants. There's a couple particular organizations out there that we've worked with in the past and have developed somewhat of a relationship. As we don't go too heavy into SEO. It's just that's a big market and it's rapidly changing, and we keep our focus on the web application and B2B platform, but leveraging the two, because we have the tool sets to handle SEO, and then a strategist or strategy consultant on the SEO side is usually a good way to go, especially if you're replacing a public facing high ranking application that's already out there. Just to bring that up, Jack, it's one that typically we don't get into until they're talking about replacing the application. That's those are always fun conversations because there's a lot that goes into it, and it's kind of a big puzzle. I enjoy those calls, I think, the most, Jack.
Yeah, I agreed. And that was a good question too. So hopefully we addressed it.
All right, we have another one that came through. How long does the implementation process take for CIMCloud?
Oh, that's a tough one. No, it's not tough. It really just depends. So there's, as Jack alluded to, based on our experience, we want to give you the highest chance of success and the quickest return on investment as possible. So with that comes that phased approach of leveraging the system in ways that you can get out the door in a shorter amount of time to start generating revenue while you continue to expand or tweak or build out more complex configurations, maybe do some custom development, things like that. I will say, just anecdotally, big picture, if I look at all the projects top of mind over the past 2 years we've taken on, I'd say the average project time for a B2B customer portal, products, images, the catalogs, all of those settings getting configured, you're looking around 2 to 4 months. The cool thing is we have some features to basically allow the system to be deployed and launched for customers to actually use in waves. So wave one, that's really quick to do with a systematic approach and leveraging the software with limited configuration from the human side, right, employee side or resource side, is just giving a window into order status and information and history and paying invoices. That's all pretty systematic. So we can deploy those rapidly and get those live to start getting real world feedback and real world adoption to help drive that ROI. And Jack, I don't know if you want to touch anything else on that, but.
Yeah, one thing I was going to add to that too, and I think everything you said definitely applies and adequately addresses that, but kind of piggybacking on where you left that, for us, it really just depends on the scope and the amount of work and how we're divvying it up between ourselves and the client. So thinking about how long it takes to get the infrastructure of our platform in place and the integration stood up, that's the easy part, right? Is getting that infrastructure in place. And that's a matter of weeks. And then from there, it's just a matter of identifying how much product massaging and content work needs to be done to get information the way that you'd like it. So for us, one time bucket that we see is when building out rich product catalogs and having images and descriptions, that can be something that leads to a little bit of a lag time. But again, we address all of that in the discovery phase of clients. And again, it kind of varies depending on the scope there. So again, it can be a matter of weeks or a couple months. We also have projects where we're doing a system replacement. There's a lot of customizations and a lot of bugs that need to be worked through, and those projects take more time. So again, part of our selling approach is scoping out the amount of work required, who's going to own that work, whether it's CIMCloud or the client, and building a strategy to get deployment as quickly as possible, and to Pat's point, usage as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well
Wonderful.
said.
Well, go ahead.
I was just giving Jack kudos.
That
he
was
answered that really well. Give him a shout out. Go ahead, Jolene.
Well, I think that's all the questions that have come through for today. So thank you so much, Jack and Pat, for your informative presentation, for taking the time to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for setting us up.
No problem. And yeah, thank y'all for having us. And again, for any next steps or questions or concerns you guys may have, to get more information or anything you need, just reach out to SWK. We have a great relationship with those guys. It can get anything you need turned around pretty quickly. So again, appreciate everyone's time. Again, I hope everyone's staying safe and spending time with family and friends, and making sure that we're doing that in the safest way possible to get back to normal. So thanks again for having us, Jolene. Thanks for kind of guiding the ship here today. And again, look forward to connecting with anybody individually should they need to do so.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.